Hello everyone and welcome to Great Leveler Gaming. I am the Great Leveler and today is our first ever This Is Not a Review and today we're going to be taking a look at Little Hope. Now this will be a spoiler filled video, so if you haven't yet played this game or haven't finished it, I do recommend finishing it at least once because we are going to be spoiling things such as the twist ending to this game, so I would recommend finishing it at least once before continuing to watch. And the reason we're calling this is not a review is because I'm not really one to criticize. I'm not much of a critique kind of guy. I'm pretty easygoing. Something has to be absolutely terrible for me to really hate it and give it any kind of negative review. Looking at you, aliens, colonial marines, you absolute piece of... Anyway, so let's crack on with the review. So we're going to talk first off about the story. Now, I am going to be comparing this game to Man of Medan. I know Man of Medan and this are standalone titles. They don't actually connect to one another, but because they're part of the same anthology series, I will be comparing the two. So if you haven't played Man of Medan, there will be spoilers for that game as well. And one of the first things that I think that this game did a lot better than Man of Medan was the pacing of the story. Man of Medan started off fantastic with that opening prologue where everyone's getting massacred and whatnot. And then we get to meet our main characters for the game, and it kind of slows down. We get introduced to them on the boat, we get introduced to the locations and their interactions with one another, and it was a lot of fun on the first playthrough. But these games are meant to be replayed, and on the second playthrough I felt that there was a lot of filler before we got to the ghost ship. A lot of, telling ghost stories and exploring a sunken plane wreck, and it really takes the wind out of the sails on your second playthrough. Not with Little Hope. Little Hope gets straight into the story. You're straight into Little Hope, and I just really appreciated what they did with this story. That on my second playthrough, I never found myself getting particularly bored. Straight away with the spookiness and all the horrors that came with it. Now, I'm just going to give a little bit of recap of what the main story is about. You play as one of 5 characters who have been involved in a bus accident on the way into Little Hope. You'll be changing and playing as different characters throughout the story, making decisions for them. But you also get to experience these same characters but at different time periods. The primary thing is obviously Little Hope in the modern days, but there's also a time from the 1600s where you get to see the witch trials and these same characters being accused of being witches. And what's really interesting is that your modern day counterparts are getting dragged back into that time period and getting to witness this and trying to influence the events a little bit to go in their favour. And then there is a third time period, which is just the prologue from the 70s, where there's a massive house fire and pretty much everybody dies. And so the mystery of the game is how come the same people are repeating these same lives in Little Hope. And it was a really interesting story, kept me guessing the whole time. Now, Man of Medan, I guessed the big twist before the twist happened. Not long before, maybe 20 minutes or so. I can't quite remember. You'd have to watch my playthrough of that to see when I actually twigged on. But I did guess, I bet none of it's real. And guess what? None of it was real. This game, I could not guess the twist. I couldn't understand the connection. I kept coming up with theories about reincarnation, about curses. And I couldn't think what it could be. It was so well crafted that the story never told you what it was. But when I played it through a second and third time, there was hints. There were little hints at what the big twist was. Now this is where we get to spoiler territory. The big twist is that the bus that crashed on the way in, the bus driver's gone missing. You can't find him. He keeps getting mentioned. Find the bus driver. Where's the bus driver? I thought we'd have come across. Turns out, boom! You were the bus driver the whole time. The character Andrew is actually Anthony from the prologue, who actually survived the big fire. And after this crash, he's kind of gone a bit crazy, or maybe he's been crazy his whole life, we don't know, and hallucinating these other characters. And it was such a fantastic twist. There was bits like where the curator was talking and he pulled out a deck of cards, as he's wont to do, all different cards, and yet then when he put them down on the table face down and flipped them over, each one was the King of Hearts, indicating that what we thought was 4 different cards was actually the same card all along. So there were hints, and on my second playthrough I really appreciated these little hints. The problem is that once you discover the twist, it throws everything else into question. So I love the twist. I think it was so well done. But when you start to delve into these, they weren't real all along kind of twists. It starts to open up plot holes. Is this because he's returned to Little Hope? Has this triggered some kind of psychosis? Is there possibly a witch's curse that has triggered this? Or is it literally, as the game tries to say, just his guilt, his demons from his past that have come back to haunt him?
That's the problem with demons. If you don't lay them to rest, they will haunt you forever.
And the problem with that is that very often the characters would split and go in their own direction. So when Taylor and Daniel are away from Andrew, John and Angela, how's he picturing or know what's happening to them? Is he literally projecting two stories at the same time? Is he just taking a nap, and while he's having a nap he's thinking that? Or is he getting lost, and when he goes on a different route, it just opens up so many questions. And the other problem I have with this big twist, and again I loved it as a thematic theme, but the other problem with this twist is the same problem I had with Man of Medan. Once you played the game once and you realise everything's hallucination, same with this one, there's no real consequences. There's no ghosts, there's no supernatural element, and that's what we loved about these games, is the supernatural. Obviously one of the big things in Man of Medan is that everyone's hallucinating, but people are actually dying because the people are actually there. They're killing one another because they're seeing ghosties, or they're having a heart attack because of the sheer fear of it all. So people actually died. The problem with this one is that, with the exception of Andrew, if anybody dies, did they actually die? Because they weren't real. They're just figments of his imagination. And so many questions it brings up. And again, why is he projecting them to the witch trial times? I get that he has an interest in it. There's again hints to that. If you go back to the bus when it crashes, you see that the bus driver was reading about witches. On my second playthrough, I played through the curator's cut, so you get to see it from different angles and you see different hints of the story. But again, how can you play it from different perspectives if all the perspectives are Andrew's? But so when you're playing the prologue as Taylor's doppelganger in the 70s and go to Daniel's room, you'll see that he's got one of the little old-timey dolls from the witch trial time. So he's always had an interest in it. So I get that he would probably hallucinate a little bit about the witch trials, but it just feels very forced when you know that it's all in one guy's head. So he's projecting 4 additional people. He's projecting himself as his younger version with a different name and everything. He's projecting the witch trial times, and he's also projecting the monsters, again, which aren't real, chasing his current versions that are based on... I mean, I know that the mind can conjure up incredible things, but it just feels a little bit far-fetched. But other than that, I love the actual story. The story on my first playthrough kept me guessing. I will tell you how good this story was, that my girlfriend caught me playing it my second time, just the prologue, and she was that intrigued, she played the entire game herself. She hates gaming. She can't really, she hasn't got the patience for gaming. So the fact that she played this entire game tells you how good the story was, how intriguing it was. Although she reached the same conclusion as me, what the actual heck if it was all fantasy? But that shows you how good the story was. In my opinion, if you knew my girlfriend, you would understand that gaming is not her forte. So for her to sit down and play this whole thing shows you how good the story was. But anyway, that's the story. That's just a general, my feelings on it. So now let's talk about good points. The monsters were so well designed, so well animated, so creepy. A massive step up from Man of Medan. The ghosties and that were really good, but this was just something else. They were so fantastic. So each ghost or monster, whatever you want to call them, were representations of the death that character had back in the witch trial times. And it was so fantastic. We had Angela's doppelganger was drowned, wrapped in chains. So now you've got this drowned woman crawling along the ground with chains whipping around and dragging behind her, just giving such a wonderful aesthetic. I love the sound of chains clinking and clanking and stuff, because I just think it's just such a perfect horror noise. It just, something about it just unsettles people. So that was a really fantastic one. Then you've got Daniels, who was impaled and he's dragging himself along and using the thing that impaled him as a walking stick. He's probably my least favourite, but he was still such a great design. Then we've got John's doppelganger, who was crushed, and now all his bones are all disconnected, and he kind of does this weird kind of scuttling thing. Fantastic. One of the creepiest movements, because when you watch the special features, you realise that they actually hand animated that character, which gives him some really otherworldly movements, which were just so fantastic, really imaginative. Now, the reason I've left Taylor's doppelganger, ghosty, whatever you want to call it, the last is because hers is really interesting. On my first playthrough, as I'm sure a lot of people probably had, they got the hung lady, or the hanging lady, or whatever you want to call her. And basically, as you can imagine, she was hung, and now she glides across the ground, feet occasionally, dragging on the floor. And it was just such an aesthetically creepy look. I loved it. But what was really interesting about this is that each character, because again, we are talking spoilers, turns out that they're all representation of how Andrew saw his family die when he was a kid. His dad was crushed by the house collapsing on him. His mother suffocated. His brother fell off the roof onto spikes. Taylor's doppelganger, you have a choice. You can tell her to go back in the house and try and find a way through that, or climb down the drain pipe. I told her to climb down the drain pipe. Who in their right mind would tell someone to go back into a burning house to escape? But on my second playthrough, that's exactly what I did, because I wanted to change it up. So she goes in the house. She doesn't hang anymore. She doesn't slip and catch a scarf and die like that. She goes into the house and she burns. So what happens? Her ghost changes. Her doppelganger gets burnt at the stake, and now you've got a burnt woman coming after you instead. What an incredibly cool thing that each time you play the game, you've got a different monster. I would have liked that with more of the monsters, like a bit of variation. But I understand why they didn't. But I was so chuffed to see this different version of the ghost. So absolutely top-notch ghosting for the monsters. They were just so well designed. The noises they made were spot on. I really, really enjoyed it. Some of the other things I enjoyed in the game was the characters themselves. A lot of them were irritating to start with, but again, I find that with a lot of games, but obviously through your decisions, they either form a stronger bond, or they end up hating one another, and it again creates a different dynamic each playthrough. So I really enjoyed the characters, and again, I am going to say I enjoyed the story. The story was a real strong point on it. But let's talk about some of the things that I didn't like in the game. We're going to start off with a minor one. The bearings. Now, if you've played Man of Medan and you've played this one, you'll know that as you make decisions that will ultimately affect the story later on, you get given bearings as to where your journey is going. Now, I liked in Man of Medan, you had very simple, things. Okay, this guy used a knife down below, he broke the knife. Now when such and such happened, he no longer had a knife to defend himself. This then to this. And you can follow the bearings one after the other. This one, the bearings seemed to be all over the place. There was no real rhythm to it, and you couldn't really see how one decision affected, because there was 3 different timelines. But for example, the little girl who's haunting you throughout this whole thing, so you think, it was very peculiar. She went from, if you follow her bearings, she had a fake seizure at the court. She made the bus overturn. And it's like, that's not what happened in chronological order. It's not even the order I played it in. It just seems to be completely out of whack. And that really bothered me to try and plot how my decisions had affected the game. I have my DVD rack here, all in alphabetical order, with a little exception down there where I've just kind of thrown some things in. Because if I want to find a film, I know if it's an A title, it'll be at the front top. If it's Z, it's down at the bottom. I know exactly where to find things. I like that chronological way of finding things. I don't mind things being told out of chronological order, as this story did, but the bearings really bothered me. It was just something that really irked me, and I don't know why. It's a minor complaint, but it is a complaint all the same. The other thing I have a problem with is the jump scares. Now, I get it. It's a horror game. It's a supermassive horror game. If you've played Until Dawn, if you've played Man of Medan, you know they love doing jump scares. I don't mind jump scares. I find them a little bit cheap, but if they're done sparingly and done well, I don't mind it, because, it's fun, it's exhilarating. There was one particular one I absolutely loved where we see one of the ghosties following us. Your attention is focused on him in the distance, and all of a sudden the ghost girl springs at you from point blank like that. Scared the crap out of me. Oh no! It was such a fantastic jump scare. I really appreciated that one. But that's all they really did. It was jump scare, jump scare, jump scare. And the problem with jump scares, once you played it once, they don't make you jump again. That jump scare still looked cool on my second playthrough, but it didn't make me scared. Now, if they were to up the creep factor, for example, when you get to the end of the house and you start looking out through the windows, as soon as your character turns around and walks away, the camera will pan back outside, and you will see one of the ghosties appear, slowly moving into frame with the music swelling, and it just was so cool, so creepy to see them just watching the house. Or, for example, when Angela first encounters her ghosty doppelganger that's chasing her when you're on the side of the bridge, and it's crawling towards you. That every time gets me panicked because I'm trying to survive. Those moments were fantastic. I wanted more of the lingering threat. That's why Pyramid Head was so terrifying in Silent Hill 2, not because he kept jumping out at you, but because he was relentlessly pursuing you and just left you unnerved, not because he was going to jump out from behind a wall. So in the next game, I hope they scale back the jump scares because they're only really scary for the first playthrough. And other negatives, I can't really think of many. That was primarily the bearings and the jump scare. And of course, if you in the next game, it wasn't a problem for this one, but it's getting tiring now that every game has a supernatural element only to be revealed that it was real all along. I like the idea that, you know, this could have actually happened to someone. Someone's had a psychosis problem, mental health problem, and they're conjuring up all these horrors and they're basically haunting themselves. I liked in Man of Medan how it was hallucinogenic. But if you're going to do that with every game in this anthology series, then I'm just not going to care anymore because I know nothing I'm seeing is ever real. I want something real, so I really hope that House of Ashes has some real, actual supernatural elements and it doesn't all turn out to be fake. That's going to be a big thing for me, because if they do it again, they're going to start losing my interest if they do any more in this series. Because I love this series, but that's going to be annoying. There is one more thing that I didn't like about the game. And again, it's a minor one, but it really felt like when I played Man of Medan that every story I was playing drastically altered. Different characters were getting captured at different locations. They were seeing different things. This one felt very much like Until Dawn did, that every scene was set, just the amount of people that made it to that scene was different. And obviously, if a certain person didn't survive, you'd miss that scene completely. I want more of a branching storyline. I want people to end up in different locations. I don't want every playthrough for me to see the exact same setting. Yes, the curator's mode, I get to see a few new locations, but I can only think of 2 that I actually saw, mainly with Daniel when he got split off from the group. I want more varied stories, because honestly, I saw about 5 different endings to Man of Medan. This one, every single ending seems to end up at the main house. So yeah, that's a big thing that I noticed with this one. Oh, one other jump scare as well before I go on my second playthrough. You have the decision at the end to either, in the witch trials, either point out the Pastor Carver, Reverend Carver, what he's called, burn the puppet, sorry, I will get my words out, or blame Mary. And on my second playthrough, for the hell of it, I blamed Mary. Holy crap, that killed everybody, including Andrew. He committed suicide, but it led to the best jump scare other than the other one, because I wasn't expecting it at all. I'm going to quickly play that for you now on my second playthrough. So there we have it, guys. That is my This Is Not a review of Little Hope. Now, I'm not going to give it a rating because this is a spoiler-filled review, so if you hadn't already played the game, you've had the game spoiled, you'll either decide whether you want to or not play it. But I imagine most of you who watch this all the way up to here have already played the game and already bought it, so my rating will not affect your decision whatsoever. Now, with that being said, I really want to applaud this game, though. I thought it was fantastic. There are some room for improvements. One thing before we go though, I do want to point out one thing I really appreciated. I should have put it in the good points section, but I forgot, so I'm just going to add it on here as a little footnote. The quick timer event was a massive improvement. The icons would pop up either here or here, and if it was, you'd know, on PlayStation Player by the way, it'd be triangle or circle, or if it was down here, it'd be X or square. So you had a bit of an idea as to what you were going to have to push when it came up. And I think that was a massive improvement. You were still having to guess, but you had more of an idea going into it. So that was a massive improvement. And I really enjoyed the keep quiet moments in this game. They spiced it up a little bit from the last game, but I actually found them a lot easier to do and a lot less frustrating in this playthrough. So kudos to Supermassive for changing that up. I think there was some really great improvements. And as for the next game going into it, I hope the only thing they improve on is scaling back the jump scares, increasing the routes in which characters can take, and of course, make it real. I want ghosties or spookies or demons, anything. Just don't fake us out at the end by it was all in our head. Alright? No. I play these games because I want something supernatural. Until Dawn had the Wendigos. They were real. And I friggin' love the Wendigos. They were so freaking cool, alright? So make it real. But anyway, that's my review. I hope you've enjoyed it. I will be doing more of these because I do like to hear myself talk. I mean, I do like to talk about games. So I do hope you've appreciated this. This is not a review and how I do it. It has kind of been a bit of an improv, as you can probably tell. If you do like it, next time I might do a more scripted version, so I'm a little less scatterbrained. But this is how I tend to do a lot of my videos. There's not much scripting involved in it, so I hope you did enjoy. Thank you very much for watching and indulging me, and leave any thoughts you have on your playthrough and my review down below in the comments, and I'll see you all on the next video coming soon. Bye. Hello everyone, you made it to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed what you've just seen. If you did, then let me know by hitting that like button down below, and of course whilst you're there, why don't you leave me a comment? I will always try and make sure I respond. And of course, if you enjoy the content, there's plenty more on the channel, such as these over here. And of course, if you want to get the latest videos, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell notification as well, and that way you'll get the latest videos from Great Level of Gaming. Thank you, and I'll see you all on the next episode coming soon. Bye.